Thanks for joining us today for a special What's Brewin Facebook Live. As you may or may not know, my name is Vanessa Marquette, and I work at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. As you know, June is PTSD Awareness Month. According to the VA's National Center for PTSD, nearly 8 million veterans suffer from PTSD in any given year. We know there are a variety of signs and symptoms that veterans can experience when they are suffering from PTSD as well. And many of those things are what people and organizations can do to help them with this. And that's why IVMF is proud to partner with organizations like the Concussion Legacy Foundation. So as I just stated, there are a variety of unfortunate things veterans with PTSD can experience. And one of those can include injuries to the brain following concussion. So with that said, today with me, I have Tyler Maland, who's the Chief Impact Officer at the Concussion Legacy Foundation, and Rob Gowan, a 25-year U.S. Army veteran who pledged his brain to Project Enlist. Thank you both for joining us today.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So Tyler, do you want to start off by telling us about your experience and work at the Concussion Legacy Foundation and how your team is advancing brain trauma research on veterans through Project Enlist?
Sure, yeah. Thanks so much for having us on, Vanessa. So at the Concussion Legacy Foundation, I lead our programs and our communications, and one of our highest priority and fastest growing programs is Project Enlist, which is our military focused program. The mission of Project Enlist is to serve as a catalyst for research on military veterans with traumatic brain injury, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, or PTSD. And the way we're doing that is by rapidly increasing the number of veteran brains donated to brain banks for research. We partner with the VA and with Boston University on the VA BU CLF Brain Bank, which is the largest veteran-focused brain trauma brain bank in the country. And why we're so focused on brain donation and brain bank research is that it is our best chance at developing treatments that work for TBI, for CTE, and for PTSD, so that we can, help and protect the veterans who sacrifice in their service to our country. So Project Enlist is really focused on finding those long-term solutions. We know so many veterans are suffering from the long-term effects of brain injury that are related to their service or possibly to, other exposures of trauma in their lives. And so we are focused on finding those solutions, and the best way to do it is through brain bank research. So really the goal of Project Enlist is to encourage, military veterans and civilians to pledge their brains to this research project. They can do that at projectenlist.org. We have over 8,000 people who have taken the pledge, including almost 2,000 military veterans, one of whom is with us today. So we're so proud to work with, Syracuse IVMF and a number of partners on Project Enlist to really try to advance this research.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for the partnership and helping veterans in need for this. So like Tyler just said, Rob, you have pledged your brain to research. Can you tell us about your history of service and your history with brain trauma and why you decided to pledge?
Sure. As you've mentioned, I spent a little over 25 years in the military, all on active duty. And I've got a few deployments downrange to Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. And with the last 14 years of my career, I was dealing with the prospects and the effects that our soldiers suffer from PTSD. And, early on, shortly after the global war on terror began, after 9/11, I had heard of PTSD, but I didn't have any understanding of what it was. Well, as time moved on and I encountered more people and I had some other experiences of my own, I came to understand PTSD, the effects, and, the concern of how are we going to treat our veterans. We've got to take care of our veterans and all that. But prior to my military service, I grew up playing sports. I played football and baseball as a young kid. I played football through high school. And I played a couple of years of college football, and I played a little bit of rugby. And so, I love the contact sports. And I think you'll find that a lot of people that enlist in the military or get commissioned into the services, they've played sports as well. And so I'm concerned about the effects of CTE. I'm concerned about our wounded warriors who suffer traumatic brain injury. And then I'm also concerned about the effects of PTSD. And what I've learned over time is how we treat all of those. The mitigating treatment is very similar, and the symptoms and the effects, they're also very similar. So, the more we can learn about it, the more people we can get to pledge to donate their brain, the better things are going to be in terms of us understanding, what we're dealing with and how we can move forward.
That's excellent. So I know you just said the more people we can get to pledge. So can you explain why it's so important for these people to pledge their brains? Sure. Especially those who had those experiences you were just saying, playing contact sports and being in the service.
Right. I think with a greater sample study, we'll just simply learn more. The more samples we have, if you will, understanding what the history was of that donor, we can interpolate what the causes may have been that brought about PTSD or CTE, TBI, that kind of thing. And I also understand that there's a need for female brains. I know that's important as well. And of course, I talk to my fellow veterans and I try and get them to pledge to donate their brain, because we'll see a lot of commonality in their histories. And hopefully the more we learn, we can isolate certain factors, learn more from it, determine how we can treat people. And, hopefully one day we'll be able to make a diagnosis on a living patient.
I sure hope so. Thank you for sharing. So as we said, PTSD Awareness Month is this month of June. So does Project Enlist offer any resources for those veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know from published research that more than 410,000 veterans have been diagnosed with a TBI just since 2000. And many of those folks who have been diagnosed also suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. We think it is incredibly important while we are focusing on advancing this long-term research. We also want to be able to help people while they're suffering right now. So as part of Project Enlist, we've started a program called Operation Brain Health, which you can find on the same Project Enlist page on our website. And what we're doing there is we're trying to provide resources and information for both veterans and for caregivers on how they can optimize their brain health, live their healthiest life, seek the right treatment for what they might be going through, so that they can feel better today, but also have hope that a brain injury, a possible brain disease related to trauma, those things don't dictate what your life is going to be, and you have a lot of power to treat the symptoms you're going through and to create a better life through, healthy brain health habits and also through seeking treatment. And so Operation Brain Health is our program to really help people get on the right track in their recovery. We've enlisted some top medical experts in the military field. If you go to the website, you'll see some videos from Dr. Rebecca Van Horn, Dr. Sid Hines, people who have really seen so many veterans who are struggling with PTSD. And so as part of Project Enlist, we want to make sure to get people the help they need. And the one other thing I was going to add, Vanessa, is if you or your loved one is struggling from brain trauma, struggling from symptoms that you think are related to your military service, to, a long athletic career combined with military service, we have a helpline, concussionfoundation.org/helpline, where, you can just enter in what you think you're going through and what you're looking for help with when it's related to brain trauma, whether it's concussion, TBI, or long-term symptoms you think might be CTE, and we'll help find you, a clinic. We'll help connect you with the right people who can get you on the road to recovery, peer support help. So I'd really encourage people, the first thing we want to say is don't just suffer in silence, seek out that treatment, and use the resources at your disposal to help feel better.
And that's so important, because there are many that suffer in silence. So thank you for sharing that. And everyone, please don't hesitate to share if you or a loved one are going through this. So Dr. Mike Haney, who's our executive director and founder, also an Air Force veteran, he's pledging his brain to your research, and there'll be a video coming on that soon. So he's involved in this. So how can others, people and organizations, get involved in Project Enlist?
Yeah, wow, we're so honored to have Dr. Haney's Brain Pledge. He's part of a growing veteran advisory board for our foundation, and we really appreciate the partnership and the pledge. If others want to pledge, they can visit projectenlist.org. That's where they'll find the information on Project Enlist and where they can sign up to pledge. And I also want to mention, when you're on that webpage, you can also click on some links that will show you any studies you might be eligible for right now. So, the brain pledge process, as Rob knows, you click that you'd like to pledge your brain. You're going to receive a brain donor card in the mail that looks like this with the Project Enlist logo on it. And you'll receive all the info on brain donation. But at the same time, you can also fill out our research registry form, which means that if you'd like to participate in clinical studies, ongoing studies during your life, you can also sign up to be informed about that. So, we really think of it as another way to serve, as a way to help, future generations of soldiers and veterans. And we're so appreciative of Dr. Haney and so many other veterans who have taken the pledge, just like Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler, for all you and your organization are doing for veterans with brain trauma. And Rob, thank you for your service and for also donating your brain. It's just amazing how we can all come together to help those veterans who are suffering. So thank you so much for joining us today, and appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks, Vanessa, so much.
To be with you.
We appreciate it.